Reading Habit, Natural Speed Reading and Training Speed Reading by Sun. Reading is one of the habits that should be acquired from childhood. Our ancestors also used to emphasize the importance of reading very much. Then, what is good reading? Parents who know the importance of reading recommend books to their children from a young age. However, some of them are experts, but most are not. They think it would be nice to give their children only good books and have them read a lot, but the reality is not like that. Since children have different concentrations and intelligences, they require individualized learning and a step-by-step approach. Nowadays, the level of education of parents is high, so it has improved considerably, otherwise, it becomes an adverse effect on childhood reading. Let's take an example. I will give you the best example. This is the story of a certain elementary school. The principal of the school was a person who thought reading was very important. So he created a reading project with his teachers. At that time, reading education was not very active in school, so I think this is a very rare case. From grade 1 to grade 6, the books were recommended step by step. 4 books a month, it would be 50 books a year including vacation. They actually applied that to students. Then, by the time students graduate from school, they would read 300 to 500 books. Arithmetically 300 books, but actually 500 books when they graduate, because the reading ability of students increases. It is said that this school swept many writing and reading competitions. In fact, considering the books that the child read in kindergarten and preschool before entering school, they would read at least 500 books or more upon graduating from elementary school. Then, what happens is that reading becomes very smooth and natural, because reading habit improves. And the more you read, the more your thought grows and your brain power also grows. Brain power is important here, but I will explain it later when I get a chance. In any case, when children read and write in this way, they think for themselves and read a wide range of books, accumulate considerable knowledge, raise questions, and greatly increase their ability to learn on their own. This is where self-directed learning comes in. If these children go to middle school and high school and continue to develop their reading habit, I think it is highly likely that they will read even philosophy among humanities in their high school days. So, around 2008, most of the really difficult philosophical classics were included in Seoul National University's 100 must-read books. Even if these students become adults later, the amount of reading is enormous. These are the people we can't beat. Now, let's go back to the old days when books were precious. There is a saying: a man must read the books of the 5 wagons. 5 wagons of books is a considerable amount. In the days when books were very rare, reading 5 wagons of books means that you have read most of the books. It is said that when paper was developed and books were made in earnest, about 10,000 books were read. In that case, we can say that we have read most of the books. Now, let's calculate 10,000 books arithmetically in a modern way. If we assume that we read 1 book a day, we read 30 books a month, 365 books a year, and 3,650 books in 10 years. Then, it takes about 30 years to read 10,000 books. In the past, human lifespan was very short. Therefore, if they were alive until their 60th birthday, they were considered long-lived and had a 60th birthday party. If so, humans would end their lives reading only books. Right? However, the reality is not like that. The reason is that I mentioned the elementary school example earlier. From my point of view, if we read 500 books until elementary school, our eyes do natural speed reading by themselves. The shape of our eyes changes a lot. The eyes protrude from the brain, and they have a lot of secrets. When you can do natural speed reading, the speed of reading will gradually increase after that. Sometimes on TV, there are people who read books quickly. The kind of people who read a book in 10 or 20 minutes at a bookstore. It is not surprising, and it's what happens to people who have been reading since childhood. People who don't even read a book a month say, "Is that really possible? I can't believe it, but it's really possible." It is also possible to artificially speed read through training. Therefore, in the past, there were a lot of speed reading academies. But there's something important missing. That is, artificial training follows the natural speed reading obtained by reading about 500 books. It can be also maintained by continuing to practice until it is established. Without practice, it is useless. That is why it is possible to read 10,000 books. Because our brain becomes networked as we move on to more and more difficult studies, the level of reading and the speed of reading books gradually increase. Exponentially, in a spiral. Until that happens, we have to have the right attitude and the right habits. It doesn't happen in a day or two. We shouldn't read the difficult ones first, but start with the very easy and simple ones and then go to the more difficult ones, so there is no adverse effect. If we choose the wrong book at first, our brain becomes overloaded, and after that, as we reject books, our lives become distant from books. Of course, intensive reading is also important. People keep trying to distinguish between intensive reading and speed reading, but intensive reading becomes speed reading. That is the practice that our ancestors did and experienced in the past, not blindly going to speed reading. The shape of the eyes changes and the networking of the brain grows. In computer terms, it's the CPU. The more we deal with various studies, the more networked we become, and later we can easily and quickly master any book. And there is reading more than that, but you don't have to know about it. To give you a hint, there is a saying: if you read the text 100 times, you will automatically understand its meaning. It is not read with the eyes, but with brain waves, and it can be said to be the highest level of reading. By Unisun. P.S. Personally, I only counted 500 books for natural speed reading. But there may be individual differences. I think that would be the basis for natural speed reading. Approximately 1 year is required for speed reading training. After that, if more than 1,000 books, the level of reading and brain power will change. It's real since then.